Here is a question nobody at Colossal has answered publicly. Does Romulus know what he is? In the specific way that an animal with an unusual brain knows that something about its situation does not match any reference point it has ever encountered. There are no other direwolves. Whatever Romulus understands about what he is, he built from scratch, in 19 months, in a 2,000-acre reserve in an undisclosed location, alone except for 2 siblings and his species that made him and cannot get close to him without triggering retreat. That is an unusual situation to be conscious inside of, if he is conscious at all. Part 1. What we know about wolf cognition. Wolves are not simple animals. That sounds obvious, but the research is more surprising than most people expect. Wolves recognize individual members of their social group and track relationship histories across years. They remember which animals have helped them and which have not. They adjust their behavior based on what specific individuals have done before, not just what category of animal they are. They model social dynamics in real time across groups of up to 30 individuals simultaneously. They also model humans. Research by Adam Mikloshi and his team found that wolves raised in close contact with people develop the ability to read human pointing gestures and use them to find hidden food. They track human gaze. They respond differently to a human who has watched them hide food versus one who has not. They know what you know, or at least they behave as if they do. That last part is the important part. Behaving as if you know what another individual knows requires a mental model of that individual, a representation of what is inside another mind. Scientists call this theory of mind. It is the cognitive capacity that allows you to predict what someone else is going to do based on what you understand about their mental state. Wolves have a version of it. Not as complete as a chimpanzee's, not as flexible as a human's, but real enough that the research community treats it seriously. Romulus is a wolf, with 19 months of unusually intensive human contact, in an environment where modeling individual humans accurately has been the single most practically useful thing he could do. He knows which handler brings food. He knows which handler moves unpredictably. He learned the camera maintenance schedule. He adjusted when the schedule changed. Whatever is happening inside his head, it is not nothing. Part 2. The mirror test gets it wrong. When scientists want to measure self-awareness in animals, they usually use the mirror test. Put a mark on the animal without it knowing. Show it a mirror. Does it touch the mark on its own body or the mark on the reflection? Touching its own body means it recognized itself in the mirror. Recognized itself. That is the threshold. That is the test. Great apes pass it. Dolphins pass it. Elephants pass it. Magpies pass it, which is frankly alarming. Wolves do not pass it. And here is the problem with that. The mirror test was designed by and for animals that navigate the world primarily through vision. Primates, cetaceans, animals whose primary sensory interface with reality is what they see. Wolves navigate the world through scent. A wolf's nose contains approximately 300 million olfactory receptors. A human nose contains about 6 million. A wolf's brain dedicates a proportionally enormous amount of processing power to smell information. The world that Romulus experiences is built primarily from scent, not from sight. The mirror test shows him a visual representation of himself, and he does not react to it as himself. But that is not necessarily because he lacks self-awareness. It is possibly because a mirror is the wrong instrument for measuring self-awareness in an animal that does not primarily experience the world visually. His own scent is not in the mirror. The reflection does not smell like him. It does not move in quite the way a real wolf moves. To Romulus, a mirror might be the least informative object in his environment. Of course, he ignores it. If you designed a test using scent, a scent signature that was his own but displaced, presented somewhere unexpected, would he behave differently toward it than toward a stranger's scent? Some researchers have tried versions of this. The results suggest wolves do treat their own scent differently from the scent of others, which is not the same as mirror self-recognition, but which points in an interesting direction. We might be measuring self-awareness in direwolves with the wrong instrument entirely, and calling the result absence of self-awareness, because the instrument did not register anything. Part 3. What it feels like to be the only one. Here is the thing about Romulus that does not have a clean scientific framework around it yet. He has never met another direwolf, not in the whole 19 months of his existence. He has met grey wolves, probably through scent at the perimeter. He has met domestic dogs through the behavioral signatures left by the handlers. He has met humans constantly. From a distance he controls carefully. But nothing that smells like him. Nothing that moves like him. Nothing with his skull shape and his coat and his vocalizations. What does an animal do with that information? We do not know. Animal cognition research has studied social isolation in wolves, and the behavioral consequences are well documented. Isolated wolves show stress markers, reduced problem-solving capability, disrupted social behavior. But Romulus is not isolated. He has Remus. He has Khaleesi. They have formed a stable social structure. They eat together, hunt together, howl together. He is not alone. He is just alone in a specific way that no animal in the history of this planet has ever been alone before. The last of a kind that has only just been remade. Without the behavioral inheritance that would tell him what being that kind of animal is supposed to feel like. Every behavior he has is either inherited through the genome or learned from the world Colossal provided. There is no elder direwolf who taught him how to hunt in the specific way direwolves hunted during the Pleistocene. No social memory passed down through a population of his own kind. He is running on hardware without the software that was supposed to come with it. Whether he experiences that as a gap, we cannot know. But the behavioral data suggests he is filling it with something. The camera mapping, the human profiling, the systematic environmental modeling that starts to look less like exploration and more like a very specific project. He is building a picture of the world he is in, more precisely and more persistently than the grey wolf baseline predicts. Maybe that is just what a smart wolf does with an unusually information-rich environment. Or maybe it is what happens when an animal with unusual cognitive capacity has nothing familiar to anchor its understanding of the world to, and starts building the anchor from scratch. Do the direwolves know they are not supposed to exist? No, not in those words. Not in any words. But here is what the behavioral data actually shows. 3 animals in an enclosure with no species-specific behavioral inheritance, no elder population to learn from, and no familiar reference point for what they are. One of them spent weeks mapping a surveillance system he had never been taught to notice. One of them timed the human shift changes within days of them becoming relevant. One of them adjusted her perimeter behavior immediately when the monitoring protocol changed. They are building something, a model of the world they are in, more complete and more precise than the baseline predicts for their species at their age. Whether that is self-awareness or just unusual intelligence in an unusual situation is a question cognitive science does not yet have the tools to answer cleanly. The mirror test says no. The behavioral record says something more interesting than no. The last direwolf that ever thought anything thought it 12,500 years ago. Whatever Romulus is thinking right now is the first direwolf thought in 12.5 millennia. and we have no idea what it is. That is not a problem to solve. It is just the specific wonder of what Colossal put into the world. 3 animals with ancient hardware, no software, and an unusual amount of time to figure out what they are in an enclosure while the species that made them watches from a careful distance and cannot get close enough to ask. If the question of what happens to these animals when the story goes wrong is what keeps you watching, our last video covered exactly that. Watch the first de-extincted animal died after 7 minutes next. The Bucado, 2003. The first de-extinction in history lasted less than a working lunch. And what the scientists said after tells you everything about how this field actually thinks about failure.